Do you know the differences between the political party platforms? Well, it could mean everything to you, especially if you don't know what party you want to be affiliated with. It's time for some Straight Talk Texas. I'm Bunker Bob Steinhagen, and this is The Bunker Bob Show. Yes, and welcome back once again, my friends, conversationalists across the fruited plains of the great state of Texas. I'm Bunker Bob Steinhagen, and it is great to be back with you, and this is an abbreviated version of a show that I just did that is on the Constitution, and that show was ended up being over 2.5 hours, and realized that nobody wants to watch that long of a show. So this focus on the Constitution is going to be specific. I'm going to try to take out all the superfluous commentary that I added in the previous show, and I've taken that show off, so you're not going to be able to see that. But this is going to be what you want and what you need, and understand it, to understand what it means and what it is to be a Republican or a Democrat, a Libertarian, or part of the Green Party. And the way I structured what you're seeing is you have the right and the left of the four parties. The far right would be Republicans, far left would be the Greens. Now, some would argue that Libertarians are actually right of Republicans, and I would completely disagree, and I'm going to highlight why. When it comes to fiscal issues and in many issues, Republicans and Libertarians are perfectly aligned in many ways, but there are some significant issues, specifically social issues, where Republicans and Libertarians are completely in opposition with one another. And so I'll be highlighting that here on the show today, and that is going to kind of lead our discussion on the differences between the parties. Now, what I'm going to be showing you is I'm going to show you what the political parties' platforms show, what they say, what they've written in those platforms, and understand each party has a national and state party platform, and though I will be comparing national to national and state to state. And I want to basically start with the preambles of each, which gives you a good sense of what they believe. And starting on the far left is the Green Party, where they believe that only an anti-capitalist, anti-racist, feminist Green Party based in our 10 key values, including respect for gender diversity and gender equality, is prepared to confront and address the existential threat of climate change and the social crisis at the root of ecological crisis. Now, those 10 key values are grassroots democracy, social justice and equal opportunity, whatever that means, ecological wisdom, nonviolence, wink, wink, decentralization, community-based economics and economic justice, feminism and gender equality, respect for diversity, personal and global responsibility, and future focus and sustainability. That is your Green Party. Well, when you look at the Democrat Party, and understand, I don't call the Democrat Party Democratic, I call them Democrat Party, because the Republican Party has Republicans, Libertarian Party has Libertarians, the Green Party has Greens, and you don't call the Democrat Party Democrats. They are, and that's why the usage, the verbiage that the Democrats try to use when they talk about their party, they use the word Democratic Party, but it's not a Democratic Party at all. There's nothing democratic about it. And so it's the Democrat Party, and those who follow are Democrats. Now, before I highlight the Democrat Party, I do want to highlight that what the Greens are focused on, and they're basically focused on the fringe of society. and they have what's known as a pantheistic worldview or a naturalistic worldview, which means God is in everything. They see the environment as elemental of God. And so they create God in whatever image or idol that they want to, that they choose. And so that is ultimately what the Green Party believes. Now, when we move to the Democrat Party, they believe that government exists to achieve together what we cannot achieve as individuals or families, that government must serve all people. A representative democracy is only truly representative when every citizen is guaranteed the inalienable right to representation by fair and open elections. Notice one thing about the Democrat Party is they do not see individuals. They see themselves as in groups. Now, the principles of the Democrat Party is the right to cast an unimpeded vote, that no one should be required to have an ID to vote. And it's this idea that if you do require a license to vote, well, that is somehow racist, because apparently it's not racist to say that those of a different ethnicity, they're incapable of getting a driver license. That's not possible. Now, that's not apparently racist. But to say that you must have an identification to vote, somehow that is racist. So this kind of drives home the difference between the left and the right philosophy of government in general, and right and wrong, because ultimately they see in groups, and so they believe that no one should have to have an ID to vote. Now, of course, there's the old saying that they used to say in Louisiana in the Huey Long days, that you should vote early and vote often, because the requirement to vote, you didn't really have to have ID, and they snuck some in to vote, and that's how the political machines in Louisiana used to work. So if you are part of the majority party, which Democrats right now are, it makes total sense to stay in the majority by getting those people who can't vote, who legally are not citizens, to vote. And that's exactly what they want to do there. The right to quality public education, and you'll see throughout the Democrat platform that it is a focus not on great education, excellent education, or the children. It is all focused primarily on educators and teachers. That's why teachers' unions, not one of them, will ever put a penny toward any Republican candidate. Empirically speaking, only Democrats get money from teachers' unions, and those are completely in the back pocket of the Democrat Party. The right to affordable personal and community health care, socialized medicine, which everyone says, oh no, we don't believe in socialized medicine, but they absolutely do, and their party platform enumerates it, it expresses it explicitly. The right to unbiased and fair justice, so long as that justice adheres to the principles of the Democrat platform. Justice is interesting because so many parties and so many on the left are trying to redefine what justice is. Justice is justice. It shouldn't matter what color you are, what level in society you are. Justice should be justice, and it should be blind. But not so, say Democrats. The right to a clean and healthy planet. Let's not forget that it was Teddy Roosevelt who led the fight for conservatism and conservation in the United States. And we don't want to talk about the fact that Republicans are actually the most focused on conservatism and conservation, much more so than Democrats or Greens. Even though they say they're for conservation, the truth is they are not. and the right to privacy. And that, of course, is especially true when killing an unborn child. And we'll talk more about that in a little bit. But the Democrats, as I said, focus on groups. You are not an individual. You are part of a group. If you are not part of, you've got to define yourself as part of, if you're a black person, well, then you get extra points. If you're a black woman, you get even more points. And today, what the great thing about today is, if you want to change your sex, if you want to call yourself a woman and you're a biological man, you can do so. Where we are headed is, if you want to call yourself black, if I wanted to call myself black, the Democrat Party and the Green Party, they will support that idea. And libertarians, by the way, they would support that idea because their platforms clearly state that you can be anything you want. So this is where we are headed as a nation, so long as this social experiment continue to be waged. And obviously, when it comes to a worldview, the Democrats really hold to a naturalistic worldview, which is that the belief that all things came out of nothing. It holds to evolution and atheism. And ultimately, what that means is that man is at the center of the universe. So it is, I decide, my moral compass is based upon what I feel at the time. And what's dangerous about that notion is that as the reality is that emotions are real, they're just not reliable. Think about how many times you've been emotional in a situation and you've made bad decisions. This is the problem with the naturalistic worldview that permeates both the Democrat and Libertarian parties especially, because it's basically we create reality, we create morality based upon what we feel. There is no standard of morality, and those standards continue to change. Now it is okay for a child who is 12 years old to get a sex change operation, to have a boy to have his testicles removed. That is deemed by Libertarians, Democrats, and Greens as acceptable, as morally acceptable. And this is where we kind of see the crazy that comes out in some of these platform views. So that's the Democrats. Now, when we move over to the Libertarian Party, they seek a world of liberty, a world in which all individuals are sovereign over their lives and none are forced to sacrifice their lives for the benefit of others. Libertarians deny the right of any government to regulate the lives of individuals and seize the fruits of their labor without their consent, and hold that where government exists, they must not violate the rights of any individual, namely the right to life. Now, before we go any further, understand they are not saying the right to protect innocent human life, the life of the unborn. It's not at all what they're saying. In fact, the Libertarian Party is purposefully silent on the issue. Their party platform actually says, our support, and this is from the platform number 1.0 on personal liberty, our support of an individual's right to make choices in life does not mean that we necessarily approve or disapprove of those choices. That very statement is contradictory in of itself. You see, a party platform should be telling us what you believe and what you don't believe, where you believe, and especially when it comes to government, the role of government, where government should act in our lives and where government has no place in our life. Libertarians and Republicans do the best job of articulating where government should not be in part of our lives. Well, this one basically doesn't say that. It makes no stand. But in just this last year, in May of 2002, Libertarians put and added this addendum to their platform. And this is Libertarians on abortion. Their position really is interesting because their position has everything to do, not with what is right and wrong, but it is basically about the fact that it is divisive. It says this, however, as Americans as a whole are less divided over this question than hardcore left and right politicians would lead you to believe. Pew Research finds that 60% of Americans polled think that abortion should be legal in some or most cases, with 26% saying it should be legal in most cases. And only 13 saying illegal in all cases. This is, if you're going to cite a statistic about political opinion, you are now saying we don't hold, and this is why libertarians hold to a naturalistic worldview. It's not about what is right and wrong, because there is no standard of right and wrong with libertarians. It is all about what people think and feel. When I was at Texas A&M University, the best example that I ever got about about science was from a Science 101 professor who said that science something is considered scientific when it has been tested and hasn't been disproven. So you put forth a hypothesis and then you try to disprove it. Because to prove something means it hasn't been disproven, which is why when people say they want to take the scientific approach to something, they want to take the scientific approach to, for instance, the COVID pandemic. The problem is, every time science was tested, it was disproven again and again. And this caused the problem with many conservatives like me who said, wait a minute, science has proven what you've just said is a lie. So why are you continuing to push that idea? Environmental science, quote unquote science, is not science at all. In fact, it has become democratized, where scientists basically get together and they all sign something and say, yeah, we agree with this, even if the scientists who sign that document have no experience in environmental science whatsoever. It's just a way for people to push forward a political agenda that will fly in the face of science. And this is, to me, where science should be playing the greatest role. Because when it comes to the science of whether or not that which is in the mother's womb is a life, the question should be answered. Is it or isn't it a life? But no one, and you will never see a debate on this issue. So if you are part of the left, if you are a libertarian or a Democrat or part of the Green Party, and you try to give arguments as to why abortion should be legal, you will never put forth a scientific argument, because it can then be proven wrong. Any argument that says, the first question would be, is that which is in the mother's womb a life, or isn't it? You can't prove that it's not a life. So then you go to viability. Well, it may be a life, but it's not a viable human life. Well, what does that mean? Define viability. Is if you put a one-day-old baby on a table and leave it alone for several hours, will it continue living? No, it will not. Why? Because it's completely dependent upon another person. So to argue viability is a misnomer at best. But what the libertarians do in their assessment, in their explanation as to where they stand by saying we don't have a stance, they then enlist the opinions of others. And by the way, on this site, if you go into the description, I have added links to all of the political platforms that you can see for yourself, and those platform links will take you to the political party's website, not mine. So you will be able to see their political party platform. Under the Libertarian National Platform, I have added this document that basically highlights where they stand on abortion so that you can see this for yourself. You need to be informed. Underneath this, so they put this statement out, and then the statement continues with the opinions of others. And so they basically say, here are the opinions of libertarians who stand on both sides of this issue. So let's look at these, and I'm just going to highlight just a few things about what they say. The first one says, I will continue to fight to make abortion unnecessary without involving government force. Well, my question is, why should it be unnecessary? Why is it a bad thing? But let's keep going and look at other comments that they say. Here's one that says, I'm pro-choice, but I'm also pro-quality of life. It's essential that we determine our own destinies, including if, when, and how we bring a life into being. Through that, we can enable a world in which every parent is willing, every child is wanted, and all of us are free. If, when, and how we bring a life into being, we've actually solved that. It's called sex, choosing whether or not to have sex. And please, before you go to the argument of, well, what about rape and incest? Let's first have an honest argument about life, whether that which is in the mother's womb is a life. Then I'll talk to you about rape and incest. But before, if you want me to go there, you need to go to where 99.9% of abortions lie. Not where, and that is not where rape and incest exists. It is where the quote-unquote choice of the mother exists. Now let's keep going because I need to keep this show short if I can. Abortion is a terrible thing. The question I have is, why is it a terrible thing? Now, they don't mean that. This writer does not mean that abortion is a terrible thing. Why do I say that? Because then they say, rather than attempting to ban that which we find distasteful, wait a minute, I thought it was a terrible thing. Or is it just a distasteful thing? These are not honest responses to the question of life. We who call ourselves pro-life must always be pro-everyone's life. We are. I am pro-everyone's life. If I was not pro-everyone's life, then I wouldn't be trying to defend the right of the unborn child. You want to say that which is in the mother's womb is not worthy, I think it's good. It's a terrible thing. What is it? Is it terrible or is it just a distasteful thing? Is it just something that we want to argue about? Let's keep moving. Abortion is an issue where libertarians acknowledge good faith arguments on both sides. That is a crock of horse dung. Not true. There are not arguments on both sides. There is no argument from the left. There is no argument from libertarians. Libertarians are, well, whatever is good for you. Well, what if I want to just take a baseball bat and hit your kid? Well, wait a minute. Now you're harming someone. You can do anything you want as long as you're not harming someone. Well, because I believe that which is in the mother's womb is a life, I then believe that when you start tearing apart its body and sucking it out through a tube, that you're harming someone. If you believe what this person is selling, then it's insane. The eventual solution is less likely to come from political institutions than from advances in medical science. Advances in artificial wombs may hold the key to finally parenting a solution. Here's the problem with this. Libertarians here's the problem. Let's say that your argument, whoever this is that's writing this, let's say your argument is true, that we create these artificial wombs that actually do, that bring a child to full term and they're born. Are libertarians going to then hold to the position that a woman may not have an abortion? Heavens no. You libertarians have made it clear. We will not. This is a quote-unquote healthcare issue. It's not an issue of whether or not a woman has a child is that which is in the mother's womb is a life. It is a choice. It's just a matter. But let's continue and look at just a couple of more. My main issue with the state banning it is that government cannot be trusted with the power to police it. It could lead to huge violations of doctor-patient confidentiality, and it's not something that can be effectively stopped without massive amounts of overreach. Is murder overreach? No, I don't think so. Do I think that women should be charged who get an abortion should be charged with murder? No, I think the doctors should, because the doctors are the ones who are actually doing the procedure. That's where we have a problem. That's where because I believe that which is in the mother's womb is an innocent human life. Again, notice not one person. Well, someone kind of does, and I'm going to show that in just a minute. As someone who has spent this one is my favorite. As someone who has spent a lot of time thinking about and reading about the ethical philosophy more broadly and the issue of abortion more specifically, I've come to the conclusion that the issue is mostly a battle of institution. Nobody has a solid, airtight argument for if, when a fetus becomes a person with an inalienable right of life that would supersede someone's right to expel something from their body. No, actually, those of us on the pro-life point of view have an airtight case. Prove that that which is in the mother's womb is not a life. It is not my job to prove that it is a life. It is your job to prove that it is not. It is your job to prove that it is not a viable human life. What's the Hippocratic Oath? First, do no harm. That's what we believe in medicine, right? That's the first rule for doctors. First, do no harm. And if you don't know, you don't act. But libertarians are completely dishonest when it comes to the issue of abortion. This one is tragic. I was always pro-life. I then found myself in an abusive relationship, pregnant, and for the first time in my life, understanding the desperation that I previously didn't think could ever be enough to justify ending a pregnancy. I was wrong. The need for to justify ending a pregnancy. You were wrong, and this is a tragic situation, no question. But you're in an abusive relationship. So if you're in an abusive relationship and that's the reason you want to give for having an abortion, I've got a better solution for you. Get out of the abusive relationship. And you know what? You shouldn't really even fear for the child. You should be fearing for yourself. If you get out of that abusive relationship, guess what? That child has nothing to worry about. She writes, I still grieve for the need for abortion. The need for abortion. Isn't that an interesting use of the word, need? This is, I have this quote here from William Pitt that says, necessity is the plea for every infringement of human freedom. It is the argument of tyrants. It is the creed of slaves. When you say it is a need, you needed to have an abortion, I challenge that argument. You didn't need to have an abortion. You needed to get out of that relationship. Isn't it interesting that this writer, who mourns for this abortion, and understandably so, isn't it interesting that her need was to kill a child, not get out of the relationship? That tells you something about the mindset, in my opinion, the mindset of libertarians. Because they see these things as needs, not absolute, not a choice between life and getting the hell out of a bad situation. So that is the libertarian position. The first one is quote unquote right to life. They don't have any. That has nothing to do with protecting innocent human life. The right to liberty of speech and action. Accordingly, we oppose all attempts by government to abridge the freedom of speech and press. And as well as government censorship in any form, and the right to property. Accordingly, we oppose all government interference with private property, such as confiscation, nationalization, and eminent domain, and support the prohibition of robbery, trespass, fraud, and misrepresentation. Notice that with libertarians, their focus is solely, just like Republicans, on the individuals. And they have a pantheistic worldview, or excuse me, a naturalistic worldview. That is where libertarians stand. So again, like Democrats, like many on the Green Party, how we establish what is moral and immoral is in the eye of the beholder. If something may be moral for you but immoral for another person, well, that's just between you and me. That's why we are now giving the permission for children who can't even who don't even have a right to drink, who don't have a right to smoke, who don't have because they're too young and impressionable. We're giving them the right to have a sex change. This is where our nation is, because we have no moral compass. It is all based upon what we feel. Throughout the world, people dare to dream of freedom and opportunity. The Republican Party of Texas unequivocally defends that dream. This is part of the preamble. Principles of the Republican Party is strict adherence to the original language and intent of the Declaration of Independence and the Constitutions of the United States and of Texas. The sanctity of innocent human life, which should be equally protected from fertilization to natural death. Preserving individual sovereignty and freedom. Limiting government power to those items enumerated in the United States and Texas Constitution. Personal accountability and responsibility. Self-sufficient families founded on traditional marriage of a natural man and a natural woman. Having an educated population with parents having the freedom of choice for the education of their child, of their children. The inalienable right of all people to defend themselves and their property, a free enterprise society unencumbered by government interference or subsidies, and honoring those that serve and protect our freedom. Like libertarians, the focus of republicanism, of Republican platform is in the Bill of Rights, is protecting individual rights. And that is the job of government, to protect those rights. It should become as no surprise that the Republican platform holds to a theistic or deistic worldview. That there is a God. While some don't know who that God is, there is an overwhelming agreement that there is a God. Some of us, like me, hold to a biblical worldview, a Christian biblical worldview, that God is Jesus Christ. And some do not. And that's fine. We have Jews, those who believe, and others of other faiths. But the idea there is, though, that there is a God, and that is where our moral compass comes from. We don't find our moral compass from within ourselves. We find it from God's Word. The Ten Commandments, for instance, is the basis, the baseline of where we get our Constitution, of where we get our laws. And before those, one of the challenges that libertarians often make is you can't legislate morality. That's why you shouldn't be trying to impose morality into laws, and why government has no role in legislating morality. The problem with that is all laws are based upon a sense of morality, of what is wrong and what is right. So to say that you can't legislate morality is a non sequitur. It's something that just doesn't hold water, because that's the basic essence of every law that we have. And so when we look at the left versus the right, certainly there are some similarities and some differences between the left and the right. But I want to highlight what those left and right differences are, so that I can show where we agree with libertarians, because I've already shown where we disagree, and where the Democrat and Green Party, where they are in lockstep. And I will tell you that the Green Party is as much a part, or the Democrat Party is as much a part of the Green Party as anything. It is hard to differentiate the two. The Green Party platform, the national platform, is actually thicker, longer than the Democrat national platform. And it is amazing how much they contradict. But when you look at the two sides of the political aisle, the left and the right, or philosophical political aisle, you look at those who are on the Democrats on the left, they believe in a utopian mindset. That's why you'll see things in their platform, and I'm going to highlight one of them today, that if we do this, then everything's going to be like unicorns and rainbows. Everything's going to be great. There won't be any other problem. While on the other side, there is the freedom mindset, the freedom and liberty mindset, understanding that as a follower of Christ, I don't believe that there is such a thing as a utopia, that will only come in heaven when I leave this earth. The fact of the matter is, man is inherently sinful, is inherently flawed, and is in need of a Savior. That's why I tell people, when I die and I stand at the gate of heaven, and God says, "Why should I let you into my kingdom?" I'm going to tell God, I'm going to give God 3 reasons why I should be put in the kingdom of heaven. Those 3 reasons are Jesus Christ, and Jesus Christ. Because it is through Christ that I am made a child of God, that I am been given the right to come into and enter the gates of heaven. Nothing of myself. I myself, that's why the Apostle Paul talks about, "O wretched man that I am," in Romans. I wage war against my body, "O wretched man that I am." Not that I was, that I am. He's constantly, the sanctification process is a constant process. It doesn't just go, it doesn't happen when we come to faith. It is a process that we are constantly battling. And so, because I have that mindset, it is hard for me to embrace or understand those who see that we can somehow have utopia here on earth. That is not how the world works. So the left looks at a top-down government. They believe that government somehow, even though government is not an inanimate object, it is a people, it is led by people who are just as flawed as anyone else. They believe somehow that if you put the right people in, they're going to be honest, that they are going to be trustworthy. They are no more trustworthy when you put them in the top branches of government as they were before they got in the top branches of government. That's why libertarians and Republicans look at a bottom-up government of the people, by the people, and for the people. Obviously, as you saw in the preamble of the Green Party, they distrust capitalism, and they believe in the common good. That's why, as Democrats, the Democrat Party, they look at you. You are not a person. You are not an individual. Your individual rights are irrelevant. It only matters what we can do for the group. Your individual rights are irrelevant. The group rights are all that matter. And on the right, we distrust government because government is flawed. Generosity via government versus generosity via personal choice. This is a key because the left is very generous with your tax dollars. When it comes to their own money, they're not so much so. That's why Joe Biden, when he was United States Senator, was one of the most selfish members of Congress. He gave an average of $3,000 a year to charity, but he gave millions and billions of dollars to things that he wanted to give to from the Treasury, from your tax dollars. So he basically says, I know how to spend your money better than you do. I'm going to give it to these areas. This is why you will never, ever, ever see a libertarian or a Republican say to government, you know what, you need this money more than I do. You know how to spend my money better than I do. Government at any level, from the city government to county to state to national level, you will never hear a Republican say it. Why? Because it goes directly against the fundamental principle of what it means to be a Republican, of what it means to be a libertarian, of what it means to be a freedom and liberty-loving American. Now, as we continue, the left trusts groups, the community. Hillary Clinton, her whole idea that it takes a village, right? She had that book, It Takes a Village to Raise a Child. No, it doesn't. It takes a parent. It takes two parents. If you want to be successful, then have your parents. And look at almost every successful person in America today. They have one thing in common, seemingly. It is that they have a mother and a father, that they stayed in school, that they did not get married before they left college. These are some fundamental elements of what makes someone successful. And it isn't because government can do more or should do more. So they trust the right trust individuals. The utopian mindset is top-down government. And so where it really comes down to it, governments, when Democrats look at what is the focus, Democrats focus on the fact that each person has different circumstances, and in an effort to reach equal outcomes for all, enlist government to allocate the exact resources and opportunities needed to reach that outcome, where those of greater means and/or capabilities must provide for those with less. And a centralized government is the most capable to objectively ensure that not equality, equity. Equity is equality of outcome, that everyone have the same outcome. While on the converse, Republicans, the right, believes in equality. Government's purpose is is to protect our freedoms, build roads, provide for a common defense of our nation, and prosecute violations of personal liberty where each person is ensured equal opportunity, not equal outcomes. There is a clear difference between the right and the left. And there is a clear difference between Republicans and Libertarians when it comes to, especially when it comes to a foundational moral grounding. It is impossible for me to understand how anyone can say that they're a follower of, that they're a Christian, and yet they are they're pro-abortion. That they're going to be a libertarian, that they're going to be a Democrat or a Green Party. How can a Christian, because Ben Carson even highlighted the fact that these values are completely at odds with one another. And so it really kind of begs the question as to what's going on there. So what I want to do is I want to begin to look at Article 1, beginning with the Establishment Clause, which is religious freedom in the Constitution or of the Bill of Rights. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof. Now, before I move on, I do want to say that there are some who say, well, the Constitution doesn't mention God, therefore it's a godless Constitution intentionally. That's simply not true. In the ratification clause of the Constitution, it actually says this in the year of our Lord. Some could argue that this actually isn't even is going further than talking about God. It's talking about Jesus Christ. And so there is to say that our Constitution is a godless document is absolutely wrong, especially since when you consider the Declaration of Independence, which established that our rights are endowed by our Creator. With certain inalienable rights are endowed by our Creator. The Declaration of Independence defined who we are as a nation, and the Constitution defines how we are and how we govern ourselves in the nation. And so as we look at this, while the national platform of the Green Party makes no mention of religious freedom, the state Green Party acknowledges the right of individuals to worship or not to worship. The Democrat National Platform states that they will protect the rights of each American for the free exercise of his or her own religion, while at the very same time making a point to infringe upon the rights of business owners, doctors, social service agencies, and the like from holding to their religious convictions. So if a doctor wants to say, I don't want to perform an abortion, well, guess what? You lose your medical license because you cannot impose. The idea that a for-profit company, a private company, can make decisions on health care. For instance, Hobby Lobby did this, and they said, we're not going to include abortative options in our health care plan. And the Democrats said no. The left said no. But it's a private company. And the Supreme Court backed them up. That's why a baker, even though, and we've had these instances that went to the United States Supreme Court where a baker said that they did not want to have to create a wedding cake for a gay wedding. And the government swooped in and said, no, you have to, or you're going to go out of business. And the Supreme Court said, no, it's a private business. A private business has a right to decide who they want to serve and who they don't want to serve. But those on the left do not care about the rights. Again, it's not about the rights of the individual. It's about the right of the groups. And that's why you see what you see. And even when it comes to NGOs, nonprofit organizations like Samaritan's Purse or Salvation Army, these are institutions that are, the Salvation Army is actually a church. Many people don't know that, but it is an actual church. The Salvation Army is a church. And the Democrats say that the Salvation Army should not be able to discriminate against those who are not of the Christian faith. The Salvation Army is a church, and they're saying, hey, you can't do that. You have to allow anyone. An atheist should be able to be an employee of the Salvation Army, or World Vision, or Compassion International, or Samaritan's Purse. And as crazy as that sounds, this is the mindset that comes along with the Democrat Party. And that's why this is not the party that I could ever, that anyone should ever support. Texas Democrats support the Constitution's guarantee of every individual's right to practice their own beliefs without imposing them on others. Notice this. It's without imposing them on others. That's a very important way of writing that. To impose. What is to impose? Does it means to interfere with, to come into contact, to bring forth when it's not necessarily welcome. So even to evangelism would be is in opposition to the Democrat Party. When I show you in a moment that libertarians, how they write it, they write it correctly. But the Democrats are showing their hand, because it's not about your right or freedom. It's saying, if you have a religious belief, you may not even share that. Because in government, by the way, these are political platforms, let's remember, government should prohibit it. That's a dangerous notion. Libertarians favor the freedom to engage in or abstain from any religious activities that do not violate the rights of others. We talked about that with abortion. We oppose government actions that either aid or attack any religion. Texas libertarians, so side by side, upholds the ideal that government should not interfere nor discriminate in matters of personal conscience such as religion, speech, creativity, or political activity. We favor the freedom to engage in or sustain any religious activities that do not violate. So if you look back at the national platform, that's what I want to focus on. The Libertarians' national platform says that do not violate the rights of others. That's the key. It's not that to impose my opinions does not violate your rights. But Democrats say, no, nay. They do violate your rights, and you should not, because they're an imposition, you shouldn't have that right given to you. Republicans denounce bigotry, racism, anti-Semitism, ethnic prejudice, and what? Religious intolerance. I'll bet a lot of people didn't know that Republicans believe that. Why? Because they watch the mainstream media. Republicans oppose discrimination based on religion, among others, like sex, sexual preference, disability. We value the right of America's religious leaders to preach, which has come under attack. The IRS is constitutionally prohibited from policing or censoring speech based on religious convictions or beliefs. Safeguard religious institutions against government control. Republicans support the right of people to conduct their businesses in accordance with their religious beliefs. Here's a direct response to the Democrat national platform. We oppose government discrimination against businesses or entities which decline to sell items or services to individuals for activities that go against their religious views about such activities, like the bakers. Texas state Republicans believe that religious freedom is under attack, which is why there are so many platform planks that focus on this constitutionally protected right. Plank 108 focuses on protecting the freedom right of students and teachers to engage in prayer and religious speech, in censorship of discussion of religion in our founding documents, and protecting a student's freedom to exhibit religious items. Plank 133 upholds the right of medical students, and for that matter, Plank 163 highlights the right of all individuals from being imposed upon by government. Plank 177, which sounds insanely obvious, but is under attack by Democrats who have no problem infringing on the right of religious institutions, have the freedom to recognize and perform only those marriages that are consistent with their doctrine. Believe it or not, there is the idea that if you are in a Baptist church, you have to be able, you have to allow an atheist wedding or a Muslim wedding to go on, as crazy as that sounds. Protecting public display of the highly offensive and triggering 10 Commandments. Upholding and defending our God-given unalienable rights of religious liberty and God's biblical design for marriage between one biological man and one biological woman, which of course is the epitome of insensitivity. It should come as no surprise that the Republican platform is the only platform that includes the name of God in it. All other from all other parties do not make mention of the name of God. So that is one other distinction. Now, let's focus. There's other parts of the First Amendment that I want to focus on as well. Let's focus on the portion of the First Amendment where Congress shall make no law abridging the freedom of speech. Now, the Green Party actually wants to amend the Constitution to unequivocally define that money is not a form of free speech. In other words, they want campaign. They do not want you to be allowed to give they want to control the amount that you give to a political campaign. That's what they're talking about there. Authorize the regulation of election contributions and spending to eliminate undue influence of money in our political system and to protect the rights of all Americans to free speech. That's completely hogwash, because when you have a media that is in bed with the left, completely in bed with the left, and carrying their water, how else can the right of others be broadcast except through paid advertisements? And Democrats and Libertarians want to infringe upon those rights. Greens welcome the continuing and evolving potential of the internet to build communities, educate, inform, and promote free speech and artistic expression. And again, hogwash, because they restrict. There are things I cannot say that are true, that are empirically, irrefutably, and incontrovertibly true. I can't say it on YouTube because they infringe upon my right to say it. Strictly enforce our First Amendment rights of speech, assembly, association, and petition. Support students' constitutional rights of free speech. This is one area where Republicans and Greens actually agree. Our civil liberties of privacy and free speech are impaired by the expressions of the U.S. Patriot Act, and freedom of speech is vital to democracies. That's something that even Republicans agree with, and the state party of the Green Party makes no mention of that, of this portion. For speech they deem terroristic, the National Democrat platform is pushing to infringe on the First Amendment by making certain forms of speech a federal offense. Since they hold a monopoly on mainstream media, Democrats also want to control donor contributions to make it more difficult for non-Democrats to wage a competitive race. Democrats will also prohibit enforcement actions that repress freedom of speech and assembly, they say. Texas Democrats want to protect the constitutional right of citizens to free speech unless they disagree with it, of course. Religion should not be invoked to supersede the rights of others. These rights include free speech and freedom of expression, including the right of individual persons to address grievances through boycotts and condemn hateful speech. So, and the problem is they don't define hate speech. Hate speech is defined, and I use this based upon the actions of the left, is defined on anything that they disagree with. That's hate speech. So this my whole presentation is, I guess, is hateful. Libertarians believe that where government exists, they must not violate the rights of any individual, namely the right to liberty of speech and action. They stand in direct contrast to Democrats and align perfectly with Republicans by declaring speech that is not literally a threat of aggression or violence is not in itself aggression or violence and can never be used to justify aggression or violence and can never be used to justify aggression or violence. Individuals are responsible for their own reactions to speech. Amen. Texas Libertarians encourage citizens to practice their freedom of speech liberally in an open marketplace of ideas. Republicans believe the federal government, specifically the IRS, is constitutionally prohibited from policing or censoring speech. Limits on political speech serve only to protect the powerful and insulate incumbent office holders. We likewise call for an end to the so-called fairness doctrine and support free market approaches to free speech unregulated by government. Colleges and university and trade schools must not infringe on their freedom of speech and association in the name of political correctness. Freedom of speech, I'm a little bit behind. Sorry about that. Freedom of speech includes the right to devote resources to whatever cause or candidate one supports, and contrast that with the Greens and the Democrat platform, state platform. Now, the state platform of the Republican Party, social media freedom, is to limit the ability of online social media platforms to censor the speech of citizens in the new digital town square, which they currently control. And this is key for a lot of us who do what I do, because ultimately you look at YouTube, Facebook, Twitter. They call themselves platforms. If you are a platform like the phone company, you cannot restrict what people say if you're a platform, and government provides for them specific protections as platforms. The problem is they have become publishers by censoring what people say. Because I have been in YouTube jail many times now, There are things I cannot say, and they are now censoring what I say and are threatening to remove my show altogether if I say, if I violate their standards of censorship, even though those censorship standards are not grounded in facts, they're not grounded in truth, and they're not grounded in anything that is right. And this is the problem, and this is why we see the Republicans speaking to this issue in our state platform. Both Plank 108 and 130 focus on protecting the right of students and staff and of guest speakers, which has become epidemic on college campuses when conservatives like Ben Shapiro, Michael Knowles, Jordan Peterson, and Stephen Crowder come on campus. And only the National Green Party specifically affirms the right of students to free speech. Plank 206 reaffirms religious freedom and freedom of speech, and 221 opposes specific restrictions imposed by HOAs and master planned communities against certain forms of speech. In other words, you cannot be restricted from putting your American flag out on non-flag days, as some HOAs had tried to restrict. Finally, Republicans think it's ridiculous to be prohibited from wearing a campaign sticker or piece of clothing that advocates for a specific candidate and calls to rescind this law. When we look at, to finish out our focus on the First Amendment, and this is going to end the show, where it reads that Congress shall make no law abridging the freedom of speech or of the press or the right of the people to peacefully to assemble, and the petition of government for a redress of grievances, when we compare the four platforms, there is uniform agreement among all political parties. So rather than highlighting points of mutual agreement, I wanted to highlight that, and so that you could kind of get an idea that there are areas that we as Republicans and we as Democrats and Green, that where we as Americans all agree on certain things. Now, I'm about at an hour, and what I wanted to do is get as far as I could in this, and I will create another show that's going to focus on the Second, Fourth, and Fifth Amendments, all of which are highlighted in the platforms, and so that you can see the difference. And the Second Amendment, obviously, is a key one for those of us who are conservatives, both libertarians and Republicans. We all want to uphold that right, and we want to make sure that is protected and never infringed upon. So I really do hope that this has been helpful for you, and that you will stay with me. I'm going to be doing other shows on the other portions of the platforms, from education to health to finance and taxation. So stay with me. Make sure that if you haven't already subscribed, and hit the like button, because that does impact the algorithm that comes with this show and keeps me going. But this is not monetized. I don't monetize my show on purpose. I want this to be free of ads. So if you are seeing an ad, it doesn't mean that I get any of that money, because I don't. That it means that the platform has, and they let everyone know that if you're not monetized, we can still put commercials and things like that on the show. So I hope that this was helpful for you. And if you have any comments or ideas, criticisms, suggestions, what have you, I would love to hear them, because it would really help me to make my show better. So until next time, I will see you. This is Bunker Bob Steinhagen. Have a blessed day.